Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here, and welcome to the very first episode of Sail to Ys X Nordics, a series where I review every prior Ys game in preparation and anticipation for the upcoming Ys X Nordics. And what better way to begin this review marathon with none other than the one that started it all. But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing here, then by all means, like the video, click that subscribe button if you're new, and hit that bell notification icon if you're going to get updated by all future episodes of this review series and other RPGs in general. Now we get back on to the episode. So Ys 1, or originally called Ys 1 Ancient Ys Vanished, happened during the early 1980s when Nihon Falcom was formed and they started getting into the video game industry, as well as serving as pioneers for the RPG genre, especially with the action RPG genre with games like Dragon Slayer for the PC, which many at the time hailed it for as being the true action RPG. Not only that, but it would serve the foundation for one of Falcom's long-running flagship series, and also became an early foundations of their storytelling, known as the Ys series, with the creation of Ys 1 in particular serving as a response to be a more easier and kinder action RPG experience. Developed by both Tomoyoshi Miyazaki and Masaya Hashimoto, I apologize if I'm butchering that. This game would introduce probably the most recognizable and face of Nihon Falcom itself, Adult Christian. Though initially the size of the game had to be cut due to hardware limitations of the PC-88, so that the latter half of Ys 1 would become the sequel known as Ys 2, releasing for the PC-88 in June 21, 1987 in Japan, which that date alone has even predated the Final Fantasy series, and has also been later ported to other systems, consoles included like the Sega Master System with an English language option. It and its sequel would later get enhanced remake with new artworks, animated FMVs, and other quality of life features, and of course a new rearranged soundtrack releasing on other different platforms, though what many consider to be the definitive version known as Ys 1-2 Chronicles for the PSP and PC. However, like with how Ys 1 and Ys 2 are split originally, I decided just to review primarily Ys 1 on its own, and I'll be looking of course with the Chronicles versions I played on PC, though an eventual Ys 2 review will be on the way, but not very soon of course. Now with that, let's strap ourselves onto a journey in Esteria. So our story begins when Adult Christian, our main hero, has crash landed on the shores of Esteria. Keep that in your head folks, cause that will be a running thing throughout this whole series. Till of course some locals take him in and make sure his wounds are recovered. Once fully healed, he then sets on exploring through Esteria, till he meets a fortune teller named Sarah. No, not that Sarah, this one. She warns him of a great evil presence that has affected the land, and asks him to find the 6 mysterious books of Ys. Not only that, but during the journey, he discovers some oddities that also contain some mystery in the land itself. It's up to Ado to not only claim the 6 books of Ys, but also uncover the mystery of these disappearances and save Esteria from evil. And that is the story. And admittedly, yeah, it might be cliched at first with the whole Chosen One prophecy and finding these MacGuffins, and the fact that the emphasis of the story is rather light. I think the mysteries of these strange disappearances do at least keep you intrigued, and I think it's really paid off well at the end. Though there are of course some bigger things at play once you do get to the ending and to the sequel. But aside from that, Adult is enjoyable, and the characters you do get to talk to are pretty decent, with the interesting ones being Sarah and the 2 blue-haired girls that totally don't look 100% similar, don't worry, that gets brought up later in Ys 2. Being Rhea and Fina, as well as you also get to meet Dogi, who will become Adol's best buddy throughout this whole series. Now obviously the Ys series in general is not 100% renowned for its deep narratives, but unlike flagships of a series like the Trail series, these games do at least have more a sense of adventure, and the first game does have that feeling down really incredibly well. Now we get on to the visuals, and I have to say, I have not much to say other than it looks pretty good, especially for an enhanced remake of an action RPG that came on the PC around the 1980s. It just looks really nice and charming. The character portraits they have for the newer ones, for the artwork, just look absolutely wonderful, and I absolutely love this golden menu UI we have when you play the game. Not only that, but I think the enemies also look pretty nice, and I also just love the art direction for Ado in general. It does look on par with the series in general, and even though obviously nowadays Ys games, especially with the likes of Ys 8, 9 and 10, are absolutely breathtaking, there's just something about this game in particular that just looks so damn charming. So other than that, I have to say it just runs really well, and I do like looking at it. Now that we have finished talking about both the story and the visuals, I think it's primarily time to talk about what the Ys series is best known for, and that is the gameplay. And the gameplay for Ys 1 is interesting. Now, Ys 1 is a top-down action RPG, but however, instead of attacking by using a button, Falcom have created a system that will be more easier for players to get a hang of. And that, my friends, is the bump system, which allows you to run towards enemies and Ado will automatically swing his sword during contact, basically bumping them. Though a certain strategy with this mechanic is to bump enemies off center, whether it's from behind or diagonally horizontally, as trying to bump them head on will likely deal damage to you, and if you do idly wait, your HP will regenerate. Definitely, it's very odd at first and especially dated and archaic for its time, but it's still strangely fun in its own right. But also definitely will be also completely outdated because later Ys games would totally have much more refined and better combat systems later in general. But honestly, this thing in general just feels just pretty nice and addicting in some ways. Another thing that Ys is also known for is its dungeons, and while there are only a few, they do feel quite solid enough to explore, I feel, with a few puzzles usage of certain key items. However, the max level you can reach is 10, which I know that sounds really odd, and the fact that you can easily max up to it all the way to, like say, half of the game, you can just already just max level. Exploring through dungeons as well as the world map is also pretty nice, and just bumping into enemies is also nice. All of it's actually pretty good, but however, there is unfortunately a caveat to all of this, and this pretty much sums up a lot of issues with earlier 8-bit JRPGs in general. And the issues include, while not limited to, is the backtracking and heavy reliant use of a guide. The backtracking in Ys 1 can really get tedious at times, and not helped if you do follow a guide. Some of the dungeons you encounter first, you're not likely meant to complete first few when exploring them. As well as this game is reliant that you find certain items and equipment, as there will be certain bosses in the game you can't kill more quickly and efficiently. And trying to find said gear, is in shops and dungeon chests. There are also some that are hidden in neither of them, and not gonna lie, trying to get it without screwing it up was really frustrating. Though thankfully you can save anywhere at any time including dungeons, and the bosses themselves are pretty decent as they do give a good challenge of knowing when to attack, though some do fall short due to the nitpick of having certain equipment to kill them. especially the final boss, oh my god. But overall, the combat and exploration are pretty much good high points for me, even if the nitpicks I did mention do drag the experience down a bit. Ys 1 in general is pretty much a short game. It takes me about 3 to 4 hours to beat it, but that is fine of itself, as other Ys games, aside from the newer ones, are somewhat short. And lastly, before we end this video, we gotta of course talk about the best thing about a Falcom game in general, and that is the music, and especially with the Chronicles version of Ys 1 is just stellar. Sound Team JDK provides some absolute bangers in this one, especially with some nice guitar melodies and some awesome strings in the mix. The first dungeon alone blew me away by this, hence why I used it for the opening of this series. So, this is the part where I play some tracks for you. Enjoy! With all that mentioned, I think it's now time to, wrap up this game. So what do I think about it? Well, overall, Ys 1 was an enjoyable game, with an interesting story, though very light of course, charming visuals, and a battle system that, while archaic nowadays, is weirdly addicting, as well as having some good dungeon exploring and a killer soundtrack. However, it really does fall back on its age, especially with the constant backtracking and the heavy reliance on certain equipment to progress. And you definitely need a guide to know what to do and where you're going, as you're given little direction. But aside from those tidbits, I still enjoyed it. And with that done, it's time to close the book of this game, and then soon open the book to Ys 2. Though not for a while, as I got some other games that I'm gonna play afterwards. But don't worry, an Ys 2 review will come sooner rather than later. But until then, see you guys later in the next video.